But right now, we have with us in a very important discussion Edmund Keli'i Silva Jr., who is the Alinui Moe, the High Chief or King of the Kingdom of Hawaii. And we'll be talking to him in just a moment or two about the situation in Hawaii, the struggle of the people in Hawaii. And this discussion we are having with Alinui Moe comes as a consequence of a September 20th meeting that I attended in Moscow. It was a meeting that was characterized as a dialogue of nations and the struggle for self-determination. It was attended by a number of peoples from around the world who are engaged in struggles for self-determination. That included people from Ukraine, people from the Polisario Front in the Western Sahara, in North Africa, people from the Irish Republican Socialist Party and the Republican Sinn Féin out of Ireland, people from Puerto Rico, from Hawaii, and I represented the African people at that conference as well. And while the Alinui Moe from the Kingdom of Hawaii was not himself there, his representative was there at that conference. And I thought it was an extremely important conference that Moscow was capable of hosting. It was hosted actually by the anti-globalization movement of Russia. And as most people know, Russia has become a significant player in the geopolitical scene of the world. And this conference was also designed to contend with the so-called unipolar world that's dominated by a singular force, and it was promoting the rise of a multipolar world where various interests of the peoples around the world could be represented and people would have an opportunity to speak for themselves. And as I mentioned earlier, there was an assortment of peoples there, and one of whom represented the Kingdom of Hawaii. And I'm really happy that we have now with us Edmund Keli'i Silva Jr., who is the Alinui Moe of the Kingdom of Hawaii, which can be translated as the High Chief or King of the Kingdom of Hawaii. And I don't know whether you are prepared to talk about the Moscow conference or not, or whether we should simply go into a discussion of what the reality is in Hawaii and the struggle and history of struggle of the people of Hawaii. Are you?
Aloha kakayaka. Good morning. Yes, aloha. I am. I'm very honored to speak about the Moscow meeting that my Ali Mananui, Lanny Sinkin, attended, and he came back with a very good report of meeting many people of like mind who themselves are working diligently and faithfully to restoring their nations as well and looking for independence. And the report was good. I enjoyed the fact that the host there in Russia, in Moscow, was very attentive and very kind and very sincere in helping those who are struggling for the independence. And I thought it was good. So, yes, that I look forward myself to going to Moscow one day soon. I have been invited to go back there to speak to them. Unfortunately, I've been here with my parents. I just recently lost my mother last month, and my dad is currently in the hospital. So we've been dealing with those issues. And it prohibited me from leaving Hawaii to go to Moscow to speak to the people there. Eventually, one day soon, I will. I also like to weigh in on the Paris situation, and my condolences and support to the government is there. The people have suffered gravely at the hands of those bent on causing mayhem and problems in a country that did not ask for it. Unfortunately, many countries don't ask for terrorism and problems to come, but when it does come, I'm always watching to see how the people there, and grateful to see how they come together. And when they come together, it warms my heart that they come together in solidarity to support those who have lost loved ones in senseless killings that happened there. You mentioned about Hawaii and our struggles here. That's a very lengthy discussion, I'll have you know. But the work is ongoing. It's a good work. The support of the people is growing more and more, and the support of other nations are growing as well. The issues of Hawaii is unlike any other country there, meaning that there's a lot of similarities, and you mentioned Puerto Rico and others, Africa and other nations. Everyone are now determined to be a nation unto themselves, because they feel that they can better serve each other culturally, in many respects, culturally and traditionally, as to who they themselves are. And I find that we as Hawaiians, Kanaka Maolis, we understand the land, we understand our culture, we understand our tradition, we understand the people. And when you have those qualities, it makes for strength that is unlike others. Because when you understand what you have, then you move forward to a self-determination, knowing that you have an inherent right, an inalienable right, to live on the land that was gifted to you. Anyway, do you have any specific questions, sir?
Thank you. I want to thank you for that kind of introduction to this discussion. We'll be talking in the second segment of the show with some folk who probably have a different perspective on the French and Paris situation than what you've just expressed. But
Yes.
the issue is that there are so many people who make an assumption that there is a natural relationship between the U.S. Government, state, and Hawaii and the people of Hawaii. There are so many people who were born into a situation where Hawaii was considered simply the 50th state of the United States, and have no idea of the history of how Hawaii became connected to the United States, the means, the methods by which that was used, the legitimate historical leadership of Hawaii. And I think it would be important if you would share with our listeners just some of that history. How did the U.S. and Hawaii come to have the relationship that exists now? What is the history of that? What is the Hawaiian people? Who are you?
Well, thank you for the question. Again, that's a very lengthy, there'll be a lengthy discussion at some point. But my cousin, who was Queen Lili'uokalani, was overthrown in 1893. And she didn't simply give up the throne just to say, here it is, without saying first that she temporarily is advocating her throne. Which means that she was illegally and unlawfully overthrown. And who overthrew the kingdom? Well, these were a handful of businessmen. There were businessmen, attorneys, there were Christians, This is just a background of who they were. And then they loved the fact that the Hawaiian Islands soil was so rich in nutrients that their sugar cane, their pineapples, and many other things could grow very well. And Hawaii became a cash cow, if you will. And the issue of that I see in the kingdom being lost temporarily was simply over money, simply over controlling the natural resources of our Hawaiian Islands, its beauty, its location. When the United States came and overthrew the kingdom, they also saw ahead of time what it could do for them militarily. You have Pearl Harbor that houses the naval vessels, etc. You have now all the various branches of the military here stationed in the Hawaiian Islands. My people here have been bent and strongly in regaining our independence and telling the United States that they have no legal authority here. They have no legal authority simply because they're the occupiers of a nation that was simply stolen. When Hawaii was stolen, I want to say this to your listening audience, is that my people back then fired one shot. They didn't destroy any human lives, no Americans, nothing. There was no need for the military to even be here. No need for the military to intimidate the Queen. No need for the military to intimidate the people. The Queen simply approached things with the spirit of Aloha. And she trusted then, who was President Grover Cleveland, to stand beside her in solidarity. I love that word. To stand beside her and to restore the nation. Well, he was ready to do that. Unfortunately, when he was leaving office, McKinley became the president, and he saw all the things that Hawaii would mean to the military of the United States and to the United States people as a whole. So, being in the South Pacific Islands, away from the rest of the world, if you will, Hawaii has a direct line to Asia and different other places on the map. So today, I continue to work with the people, encouraging them to stand fast, to imua, which means to move forward, to do so in a spirit of aloha, without violence, with care, with the spirit of aloha to move the nation forward. And case in point, today we have an issue with Alva Mauna Wakea, which is Mauna Kea Mountain, and it's a holy place. This is where the Hawaiian practitioners, the kahunas, would go and practice and pray and give thanks to Akua, God. And that place, that sacred place has now been on the stage of the world because they want to put a huge telescope there, TMT. The people came together in solidarity, and all they did was link hands, chant, and sing. And they have gained tremendous support and respect all over the world because of their position of nonviolence approach. My position as a king is to protect my people, is to protect them from harassment, from arrest, and whatever I can do to protect them, simply saying to the occupying nation that they have no authority, that this is our land, this is our home, it is not yours. We live here. Our ancestors developed these lands. Our ancestors gave this land, this legacy, to continue to perpetuate this land in righteousness and the things that make up the Hawaiian Islands, make up its people. And I thank you for the question. It's dear to my heart because Hawaii is actually a place where all nations of the world love to come, not because of its paradisical looks, but because of its people. And there's nobody on earth here in Hawaii that can represent the Hawaiian Islands better than the Hawaiians themselves.
For that. First of all, I just want to make an announcement for people who are listening that we are involved in a discussion with the Ali Nui Moi, which is the High Chief of King of the Kingdom of Hawaii. And we are talking about the struggle of the Hawaiian people to become independent and free again. In the moment, we'll open up the phone lines, but our number here for those who want to join this discussion is 727-565-1599. Or we can be joined on Skype at Uhuru Radio. That's UHURU Radio. Or we can be contacted at djuhururadio.com for those of you who might want to participate via email. So I wanted to thank the Ali Nui Moi for that elaboration on some of the questions surrounding this relationship that the U.S. has to Hawaii. I think there's much more that people will be interested in and that I hope to draw out. But I do question whether or not Grover Cleveland had good intentions as what was suggested. I know that this was what we're talking about 1903 when the Queen was overthrown and the people of Hawaii turned into colonial subjects as opposed to the free nation that existed prior to then. But I'm just thinking about that whole time frame. I know that it was 1884 and 85 that the Europeans got together and partitioned Africa and gave different parts of Africa to different colonial powers. It was 1898 that the U.S., after the so-called Spanish-American War, captured Puerto Rico, Guam, Cuba, the Philippines, and various other territories. And then just a few short years after that, we see in 1903 the capture of Hawaii. And by 1915, we see a situation where France has carved up what we now call the Middle East and created the borders and things there. And in every instance, it seems like what we're looking at, the process of accumulation of capital and resources by Europe at the expense of other peoples. And Hawaii seems to fall into that category. It just seems to me that what happened to Hawaii was not extremely different from what was happening to everybody else around the world, and that gave the power and strength to the United States and Europe at our expense. And at least that's how we interpret these facts. I mean, if we took what happened in Hawaii in isolation, we may be able to say that it has something to do with bad choices made by the ones who followed Cleveland into office. But it looks like it was a part of a pattern that was happening throughout the world.
I'd like to weigh in briefly here. The Queen, my cousin, Lili'uokalani, did not give the Kingdom of Hawaii away willingly.
Right.
She was forced into vacating the throne.
Yes.
She wanted to prevent bloodshed because the U.S. military, Marines, were pointing their rifles, their weapons against the people. And she, being who she is, stood between the rifles and the people, and saying, "Aole, no, I will not have you kill my people, and my people will not fight you back. I will abdicate my throne temporarily, believing that your president, your enlightened government of the United States, will restore me back to the position of queen." Well, in the memoirs of Queen Lili'uokalani, I've read where she really believed that Grover Cleveland was her friend. And as her friend, she relied upon that friendship and that he would work with her. And some of the researches that I've been able to gather and from others, it does show that he was there to work with the Queen at that time. As far as his intention of his heart, I cannot judge that. I can only go from what I've read, and unfortunately, we make assumptions based on the things that we see, knowing that history in itself has been tainted simply because when someone writes a history book, they're talking about their historical events and how they perceive things, and they can word it any way they see that will benefit them.
Yes.
So the history of Hawaii, again, was because of its natural resources, because of the volcanoes we have, the rich soil, and the fact that the people here in Hawaii themselves were just people that understood our culture and tradition, our lands.
Yes.
They were not the type of people that could that went out and shot up anybody or caused war. It was not who they were.
Yes.
Anyway, when you talk about France and you talk about other Western countries and coming in and taking part of Africa and so forth and so on, again, I believe there is a similarity that you pointed out with us and them. Again, colonialism, everything was to divide and conquer, to make that nation stronger, and everything was strategic. It's unfortunate that how people go around the world simply because they think back then that they can take what is not theirs. And today, myself and my Ali Manaunui and many others here in Hawaii and around the world are bringing to light that injustices. And that light is shining on those darkness, because today the effort of restoring the kingdom is going very well, and the respect of the kingdom is now growing even deeper. And so the good things are happening for us. Slow, but it's happening.
Can you tell us what will the restoration of the kingdom look like for the people of Hawaii? Hawaii, as you just mentioned, functions in many ways as a military installation basis for the U.S. The Hawaiian people, yourselves, have your land and resources expropriated. The economy is essentially owned by outsiders. What will the restoration of the kingdom mean for the people of Hawaii?
No, thank you. That's a very good question. According to international law and laws of nations, we must restore the kingdom back to where it once before, and that's a monarchical government. We had a constitution, a monarchical constitution at the time prior to the overthrow of the King of Hawaii. And a lot of people have not been governed by a monarchical government. All they know is the government that now overshadows the Kingdom of Hawaii, which is the United States. And what this means is that as we become more and more independent, we become more strong. We then develop the government according to the people, because it is my desire that once the kingdom is restored, to open up the forums, if you will, to the people, and to have them decide the type of government they feel will best serve their needs. It is my sacred duty to restore the kingdom back to where it was. I not only have the Hawaiian blood, I'm 75% Hawaiian, but I also have the royal genealogy, the Naupio line, which is a sacred line. And the sacred line is the highest line, and that is that sacredness that compels me to restore this nation back to where it was, and to to that end, once that is restored, then we will open the forum for the people to come and say to me, Ali'i nui mo'i. We want our monarchical government, or we want a democratic government, or what have you. And that'll be up to the people at that time. But once it's restored, we'll have all the wonderful benefits of the kingdom. I created a plan called the Aloha Aina plan. And the Aloha Aina plan works in harmony with nature, works in harmony with the land, that everyone here will have an opportunity to grow their own food, to be more self-sustaining, clean up the ocean, our fresh water, our all these things are in place to move forward. It'll create jobs. It'll create a cleaner, healthier living. We have a high rate of diabetes and heart problems, medical issues, because of the foods that we've been ingesting in our system, and these foods are not good. We want to get rid of the GMO. We want to clean up our soil so that it can grow healthier and good food. So there's so many wonderful things already in place to implement for us. And so this is what's happening here.
Can you say, prior to European intervention, what was the system of land ownership in Hawaii? Did the people own land collectively, or was it owned by private individuals? And what does restoration of the kingdom mean toward the land and the resources and the relationship that the people will have to them?
Well, prior to the Overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii, and prior to King Kamehameha III, called the Mahele, when the division of lands, King Kamehameha III divided the land. A portion went to the royal family, and a portion went to the people, called the Kuleana land. But prior to him, the lands were never owned by any Hawaiian, not even the royal family, because our custom, our tradition dictates for us to just be humble and to love the fact that Akua gave us this land. So the land was for all the people. Not one person owned the land. Everybody worked in harmony with the land. Until the missionaries and all these, a handful of these businessmen, they brought with them their ideology, their culture, and saying that, well, if you want people to know that you're rich and that you are the king, or you are whom you are, you need to own land. And as you own land, people say, well, he's rich. He has all this land. Because the people then were told that if you own land, you have resources, you'll become more elevated in your status. These are part of the issues and the lies that that was told to my people, to the East back then, and to the people. I want to carefully say here that my excuse me, my family, my ancestors, Iwi Kupunas, we call them, weren't always the wisest kings and queens. And they didn't always make the wisest choices. They keep in mind that on an island it's isolated. I'm not making any excuses, but we're isolated. You don't know what's happening outside of the world from these Hawaiian islands. And when they had an opportunity to embrace new cultures and new tradition, they were like little children. Wow, this is beautiful. This is wonderful. And because of that innocence, my people back then, they were exploited. And that exploitation brought new challenges. And these new challenges brought in more and more problems but there's one constant thing here that I want to say is that although these challenges came, the people knew that the land of the people was perpetuated in righteousness. and that this land belonged to the Kanakamo'is, to the people, to Malama, and to care for all the days of their lives. That we knew. We knew that was true. We knew that we had to work in harmony with nature. We knew that we can take care of the lands better than anybody else, even the oceans that surrounding these lands. And these are the things that the Ali'is back then stressed. And therefore, back then we created fish ponds, we created lo'is, farmlands. And when all this was in place, the diseases today was not part of our culture. We didn't have all those diseases, even prior to that, when the whalers came here, they did bring their syphilis, gonorrhea, and all that stuff that nearly decimated the population of the Hawaiian Islands. But when the Hawaiians continued to eat their foods, their natural resources, they became well. They became immune to the diseases to some point. But anyway, I hope I've answered your question.
That was very helpful because that seems to always come with the assault on countries, the assault on the belief systems and things like that, that makes it easy for penetration by various kinds of exploitation. And this question of land, I mean, Europe was rather peculiar in the sense of this whole notion of private ownership of the land. Most other societies and cultures did not experience that, and I was wondering about that, and I'm also wondering what that means, toward the restoration of the sovereignty of the Hawaiian people. I have seen some evidence, only slightly, where you see this, of movement trying to develop in Hawaii, of the people of Hawaii actually talking about independence and restoring the sovereignty of the Hawaiian people, and I have found that extremely encouraging. And I think that part of what this discussion has to be about is attacking any kind of isolation that the struggle of the people in Hawaii may be experiencing, because you don't read about this from U.S. newspapers, generally speaking. And that's one of the reasons I thought the Moscow conference was so important, because there were people there from all around the world who knew nothing about the struggle in Hawaii, nothing about the people there. And so I think this is good. I'm hoping that there are people who would join this discussion. Our number is 727-565-1599, or we can be Skyped at Uhuru Radio, that's UHURU Radio, or you can go to dj@uhururadio.com and connect with us to join this discussion by email. Can you say anything more, Alimnoe Amoy, about the actual conditions experienced by the people in Hawaii? What are the conditions of the people? Are they respected and treated respectfully on their own land and their own country by folk who you have to call interlopers? I know in different places around the world, especially in the Caribbean, we see where our people have become servants of people who simply come there as tourists and other things like that. Hawaii is often held up as this paradise for tourists, etc. I'm just wondering if we have a similar situation there, where even the people...
We do.
Yeah, go ahead. Talk to us.
We do.
Yeah.
We do have that. We do have a similarity. Question? On their own lands. The answer is no. Not in my view. They're not.
I'm sorry.
The taxation.
They're not what? I didn't understand. They're not what?
I'm sorry. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah. They broke up for a moment, but I hear you now.
I'm sorry. It's starting to rain here, and I'm afraid we may lose connection. If we do lose connection, my Ali'i Manaunui, Lani Sinkin, is standing by to continue the conversation.
Splendid.
Your question about, let me go back. Your question was, is my people respected in their own land?
Right.
Well, I have to say no, because if they were respected, the land would be back where it should be, back to the people. And and I think that says volume right there, because if the occupying nation truly respected my people and these lands, knowing these lands were stolen, they would restore it back to us, back to the people. So that is an easy question for me to answer. Again, the answer is no. Our people is not respected in this land because the thieves continue to occupy the land and continue to force us to move forward in our agenda to restore this nation. Whether we go through the United Nations, the world courts, or doing what we're doing, just constantly going day by day, moving this nation forward and educating the world of the atrocities and the loss of this nation. You also talked briefly about where we stand as a nation. I believe you said something to the fact, but not in those words. As a nation and as its king, I am faced with several things. There's people who recognize me as a king. There are many who, there's many who recognize me as a king, and there's others who do not. There's detractors everywhere we go. But people who came before me and others in other nations, when you believe and you're convicted of what you believe in, then you continue to move forward regardless of what is there, because you know that what you're doing is the right thing. Restoring this nation is the right thing, is the proper thing, is the correct thing to do. And I encourage all nations around the world to stand in solidarity with me and my people in helping to restore this nation, as they stood with East Timor, who now has their independence, as they stood with my dear friend, God bless his soul, passed away, Nelson Mandela, who became the president of South Africa, as they stood with other great leaders, Mahatma Gandhi of India. It goes on and on. These men were men of courage, men of conviction, and they were not necessarily the wisest men, but they had a strength, a power, and a will to move forward.
Let's see what
regardless of the consequences.
Let's see what this caller has to say. There's a caller.
Yes.
Caller, can you identify yourself and where you're calling from?
Yes, Uhuru, Chairman. This is Ann Hirsch. I'm in Seattle.
Uhuru.
And Uhuru, I really appreciate this conversation. I'm part of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And it's so wonderful to hear straight from the people what they want and how we as white people can stop being complicit with our government and support them in their righteous and honest struggle to retain their land properly. So I'm just very moved and inspired by the conversation.
Caller,
Thank you.
Caller, how did you understand the situation with Hawaii early on? I mean, did you have any notion of a struggle or movement in Hawaii by Hawaiian people to re-achieve their sovereignty?
I had heard something a month or two ago, but I didn't know any details, and I really appreciate knowing the tradition of how they hold the land and that they have a plan to take care of the land sustainably when it's returned to them. So no, I had very little information. This is very important.
So Ali Nuimoy, is there anything you would say to the caller at all?
Aloha, I appreciate your aloha spirit, and thank you for coming into this discussion. This discussion is very sacred and very deep to me, because we're talking about something dear to my heart, and that is restoring this nation back to where it was, where the air was clean and fresh and wonderful to inhale. The oceans was clean, the fish you could eat because there was no diseases. The land didn't have all its chemicals from the Monsanto group, the GMOs. We were a healthy nation. It is my goal to restore that healthiness back to Hawaii, back to the people. And when I say my people, I don't simply mean the Kanaka Maoris, the Hawaiians. I'm talking about all people that dearly love Hawaii and want to be part of the kingdom, and to be proud, with humility, to be proud of this kingdom and its leadership, because the leadership is in place to move forward the self-sustainable living, to implement our Aloha Aina Project, to work with other nations around the world. This kingdom has a plan to talk to the world leaders about peace, to bring peace to one another. The Hawaiians call Ho'oponopono. We have now in our to-do list is to create and build a peace center here in the Hawaiian Islands. And by that, I mean that creating this peace center will bring the nations of the world here to find new ways to actually talk about peace and not about war, not about terrorism, but to deal with it effectively by first healing yourself and to move forward. The Hawaiians have been doing it for centuries, and it's worked in the families and elsewhere. I have sent letters to President Obama, to the State Department, to the United Nations, around the world actually, encouraging leaders to come to Hawaii, that we can talk about ways that can bring about peace. And part of that peace is to restore the people, not just of Hawaii, but Puerto Rico and others, Africa and other places, restoring the lands back to the people, where it belongs, where it belongs. And that's part of the peace process. And in restoring the peace process and restoring the lands to the people who are more capable, because they understand the terrain, they understand everything there, because they live it, they know it, they love it, it's theirs. And as you restore that, you restore their health, you restore their mind, you restore their spirit. And that is what's important, and that is what I and many of my people and the government, we strive for.
I think that's extremely important because there is an image that has been promoted by the forces who control our lands and our resources that somehow our becoming free and independent and sovereign people means that we intend to kill and destroy and maim all of those who have been a part of an occupying or a colonial power. And when in the real world, we haven't seen evidence of a people who have become free doing that. We've only seen those who take freedom away, being responsible for the death and brutality and
mayhem
on people. Yes, the mayhem. And I think that what your statement does is reveal the fact that it is, generally speaking, the oppressed who just want to end oppression, and you can't experience oppression of the sort that we experience on a daily basis with our identities, our resources, our sovereignty, our lands being stolen from us. You can't be for ending oppression on the one hand and seeing our mission as to oppress somebody else. I just think it's extremely important what you've said in that regard. What I would like to know.
Thank you. Thank you. There's one more thing I'd like to add is that
Go ahead.
There's a couple of things actually. When you allow corporations to have their way, because government gives them tax breaks and so forth to have their way, as they lobby for presidents or prime ministers or whomever, they become a power source, a power broker, if you will, and they continue to call the shots. Where with governments here in Hawaii, corporations, in my opinion, will not have a foothold on the people or on this land, and that these corporations will work in harmony with the government to make sure that the land is free of all its chemicals, and the water supply is free of all its chemicals as well, and it's all natural. I believe that it can be done. And I believe that it's not too far off, because the work we're doing is leaning more and more toward that end. And I believe that as Hawaii becomes truly independent, we then can be a model for other nations to follow. And as other nations see, and that's why it's so important for this government, the Kingdom of Hawaii, to implement the Aloha Aina Project. And I've mentioned that several times throughout this interview. And this project will, in fact, clean up much of this mess that the corporations have brought to these Hawaiian Islands and all lands throughout the world. What they do, they steal the natural resources, they steal the nutrients from the ground. The people are left decimated. They're left with cancer, health issues, all of the stuff that doesn't need to be there. Doesn't need to be there. And that is my mission. That is my goal, is to bring more of that to light, to bring in people of light energy, good energy, to help promote this, to help promote the Kingdom of Hawaii. And in doing so, we promote the proper way of life that we as people should be living, and not in fear of cancer, diabetes, heart problems, tumors, and all these things that continually plague us, not just here in Hawaii, but around the world. This is a huge issue.
Well, Uhuru, what I would like, Alimnui Moi, is
yes,
if you would, during the last 3 minutes that we have, perhaps tell our listeners what you would like for them to understand about the struggle, how they can relate to what it is that you're trying to do, contact information, that kind of thing. If you'd like to use the last 3 minutes or so for that, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for having me on your station and to speak to I hope that those who are listening will be encouraged to stand up and to make a difference, not just for Hawaii, but for themselves. That each time someone stands up against tyranny, against oppression, they stand up for righteousness, for things that are good. And in doing so, we become closer and closer as a human family. We enjoy each other as a human family. And myself, as the Alii Mo'i, again, this is very dear to my heart, is that if the listeners would go to kingdomofhawaii.info, and they'll have access to all the stuff that we've been doing, all the letters that have been written, all the dreams and hopes and aspirations are all there for you to read. I would encourage you to read them, internalize them, be me as you read them, and let me be you to be the sponge to absorb what you're trying to read, and then we can be one in unity and in thought. I encourage the listeners to come to Hawaii and to learn what's happening here in Hawaii. I'd be very happy to come out and meet the people anywhere in the world to continue to promote the Kingdom of Hawaii and what we're endeavoring to do and are doing. This is, again, from my heart to yours. I encourage everyone to open their hearts, listen with their hearts, and listen with the spirit of law, and realize that we, the Hawaiian people, are not different from you. We bleed, we cry, we laugh, we sing, we dance. We all have ambitions. We all enjoy the various holidays that's fast approaching. We enjoy birthdays, Christmas, anniversaries. We're not any different from you. The only difference is that our government, the Kingdom of Hawaii, was stolen by force, stolen because of our natural resources, stolen because the strategic area of where it sits, the United States wanted to exploit that for its military uses. These are the facts. And these are the reasons why we collectively can come together and to restore this nation back to where it was. And I believe Hawaii can be and will be a viable nation where other nations can look upon Hawaii as a model as to how we came to our independence in a way that is pono, which is good. Again, I thank you for inviting me to your show, and I'd be very happy to come on again at some later time.
I want to thank you so much, Alinui Moi, and I hope you will extend our regards to your family.
I will.
I experienced the difficulties that you must be experiencing as a consequence of the loss of your mother and the illness of your father. And so please extend to your family our condolences, and also to the people of Hawaii, our solidarity. We are with you. Thank you so much. Uhuru.
Thank you. Uhuru. Aloha.
Brothers and sisters, this is Omali Shatella, Chairman of the African People's Socialist Party. You're listening to Africa Live on Uhuru Radio.